Hello, and welcome to the Argyle CIO Leadership Forum, Transformative Power of AI. My name is Nick with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our panel moderator. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booths from the main agenda page, which include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat, and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Now, without further delay, I would like to introduce our moderator, Dr. Sasi Pillay, Vice President and Chief Information Officer, University of Nevada, Reno. We're super excited to have Sasi and our panelists for a panel discussion titled AI 2025, Strategic Insights from Real-World Implementations. Welcome, Sasi. Over to you.
Oh, good morning, everyone. As Nick mentioned, my name is Sashi Pillay. I'm at the University of Nevada, Reno, and I'm happy to be here with our esteemed panel. And I will have each of the panel members introduce themselves once I call upon them. But as I just wanted to say before I turn it over and ask each panel members to introduce themselves, AI is one of these types of things. Like when I go back and take a look at internet, where internet affected everybody, it was not just a handful of people, and it affected every walk of life. AI is now another disruptive, innovative component that everybody will have some method of access or involvement or be affected by positively, hopefully, in all cases. So, this is something that everybody needs to pay attention and watch where it's going and how they could be part of this generational change. So, first of all, let me ask Nigel Prasad to talk about some of the things that he's working on and a brief introduction as well. Nigel? I can't hear your voice.
The error. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the introduction. My name is Nigel Parsad, and I'm the lead software engineer in generative AI at Disney Streaming. I lead a team of AI and data engineers implementing Gen AI solutions for internal business operations. My team specializes in Gen AI-powered chatbots, vector search, and agentic frameworks, mainly to enhance decision-making and basically to optimize, augment, and automate any process that we can find that would be useful as a Gen AI application. We also develop the data pipelines behind these applications, both scheduled and real time ETLs. For those tasks, we leverage such platforms as knowledge graphs and NoSQL databases like MongoDB to create an integrated Gen AI and data solution that aligns with business goals. My background with AI, specifically deep neural network applications, began with computer vision in 2014. Like the entire world, I transitioned to generative AI in around 2022, 2021. Prior to my current role, I worked in AI at IBM and Shell Research, tackling industry challenges through AI-driven automation and deep learning applications.
Thank you, Nigel. Pete, how about a few words from your perspective?
Yeah, Pete Gibson. I was CIO at Alamo National Car Rental, CIO at Wyndham, and then ran an outsourcing company and got my start a long time ago when I was in the government running the U.S. Navy's Tomahawk cruise missile program. Currently, I am consulting, and the big topic that I consult on is AI, not because it's a big hot topic right now, in guiding companies into the right solution.
Okay, thank you, Pete. Next, we have Sabrina Shea. If
Hi.
you could say a few words about yourself and your background.
Hi, how are you? Yeah, I'm currently the ethical AI and external innovation lead at Pfizer. As a pharmaceutical company, we certainly are not new to AI, but have been wondering how best to introduce AI to this industry that's highly regulated before. And I actually have a PhD in computer science, specifically for natural language processing. So way before ChatGPT comes up, we have been doing that for 15, 20 years now. But when ChatGPT comes out, you can see how exciting we are, but also in the meantime, how much more risk it has introduced this to the field now, since it's no longer just innovations. It has to work in real world scenarios. So a lot of what we are doing now is trying to connect the dots end to end, right? So not just innovation, we have to cross that innovation case in order for the mainstream market to adopt it in a trustworthy way. We always say AI is a new colleague we can introduce to our workforce, but how would you trust a new colleague if it's not culturally fit and aligned with your values? Right, so a lot of this has to be discussed. I believe that in today's talk, we are going to talk a little bit more about that.
Okay, thank you, Sabrina. So let me start off with the first question, and I ask Nigel to address that, and have each of you will have a moment to kind of sum up from your perspective as well.
Sure.
So, what are the most innovative use cases you have seen IT teams implement, which are impactful AI that within your own industry or within your work group that you have seen? So let me ask Sabrina to start that discussion, and then we'll go get everybody's input on that. Go ahead, Sabrina.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to answer this question. We are excited about AI, right, in the pharmaceutical industry, life science industry in particular. We have seen endless potential here throughout the pipeline. Certainly, people know that we are about drug, right? So drug discovery in the early research phase has been proven to be very, very helpful. As you know, right now, each drug take $1 billion to produce, because given that there's only 10% of chance for a drug that entering the clinical trial stage to actually get approval in the end, right? So if we can cut down that life cycle from 15 years now per drug, from the discovery time to when it's getting to the end user's hand, to even just cut down to half, say 7 or even 6 under, we are helping the world a lot by bringing those novel treatments faster and more effectively to the patients. And in cancer field in particular, we have seen a lot of hopes here. Many have heard of this Nobel Prize winner ideas of the protein folding of a fold. But it's not just about that. After the development and engineering phase, after the drug entering the clinical trial phase, AI can help to optimize and make sure the improvement of the efficiency of the trials are there, right? And also to increase the access to patients who currently do not have access to those resources they needed. And also, in addition to that, it's also about finding novel treatment for some other rare diseases. We have 7,000 rare diseases out there, but not all of them have enough data for us to really dive in to develop novel treatment. But a lot of them has this common ground that if we learn about the overarching embeddings, the representation underneath how this disease interact with the human body, antibody and protein, all that, then there are a lot of hope that learning that overarching representation in AI can help us to identify individual novel treatment for each rare disease. And here, but I would say productivity again, also a lot of use cases that we have seen across the pipeline.
So in the drug discovery phase, two things that I think you highlighted. One is to significantly reduce the time from discovery to market. And the other one is a lot more options at the front end. So having a large funnel to sift through various different compounds and how it affects. So great use of AI. So Nigel, in your field, I see you're working at Disney streaming. So what are you folks doing over there with AI that can be very effective? Your volume.
Clicking it, and I got to click it harder. I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway, it's funny to talk about AI. But there's a lot of things at Disney. Disney's a massive corporation, right? So there's aspects in creative, which I don't know if any of you saw The Mandalorian, but when they made Mark Hamill look like he was a young Mark Hamill, all the way to the enterprise, which is what I deal with, business applications. So if you're talking more to like what IT teams in the enterprise might implement, I think much as we were mentioning, the web changed the way we did work. AI now, specifically Gen AI, is changing the nature of work. And that's a rather big statement, but it's true because I'm seeing this happening real time. It's happening right across Disney. It's happening across everyone's competitors. It doesn't matter what industry vertical you are. It used to be that deep learning was the province of deep learning engineers and creating maybe computer vision or ML recommendation systems that people just used. Now people are using it directly without the need for any engineers, without the need for any scientists, any computational people. Now, for good or bad, in between, we're in a transition phase. So basically, if you were to ask me what the biggest thing right now for the great workforce out there, it's really Gen AI powered chatbots, augmented by conversational AI. And of course, we're seeing the rise of co-pilot systems in almost every platform. And it goes beyond simple chatting interactions. It enables to engage your data conversationally, which is a major shift from dashboards and manual retrieving for reporting. This has totally changed people's productivity and even the expectations we have of them. Much like email now, you can get contacted 24/7. I was old enough to remember when that wasn't true. Now the expectations of what you're going to produce as an employee are much higher because you have these powerful reasoning tools. And for example, like an employee could ask, and I know this is kind of boring after protein folding, but like, what are the key revenue drivers for last quarter? And not only do you receive a structured summary, but you could refine it with follow-ups, like break that down by region, show me trends over the last 3 years. And this surfaces insights without the technological load of having to generate a SQL query or to have some sort of data engineering intervention. Of course, that's happening in the background, but it levels the playing field for people with their data and their ability to gain insight on their own time, as opposed in a report-driven fashion. So again, automated reporting and visualization, generating charts, summaries, interactive insights based upon what the user specifically needs. And of course, we could follow that up, and I don't want to take all the time, but of course, everybody's excited by the agentic frameworks. They're not quite there, but by 2027, who knows what will be available outside of the box. They autonomously query databases, synthesize reports, trigger workflows. You just send them out there and they run. We're using some of that too, although we're doing that very kind of we're more in the beginning stage of that, whereas we've already built chatbots and co-pilots and things like that. But yeah, basically that's what I see as the most impactful application. And when you say that for 2024, because 2025, we don't know what it will bring.
Okay, thanks, Nigel. So I would sort of summarize one of the key points that you made there is to coming up with ways that everyone can be involved, democratize the use of data without being a data engineer, so that everyone can really ask these, what I would call deep questions, and then further interrogate the system through AI to be able to come to meaningful conclusions. So, Pete, in your area,
if I could add one thing to that, what this has done is also pushed us understanding our data. It used to be generate a report or whatever. That's it. We look at it. We kind of digest it. Now you could do it real time. So it's pushing the engineers. It's pushing the insight further. What can we do now that we all have that power of being able to personalize the data and chat with it? So yeah, so it's even changing data science at the enterprise level.
There's an old adage, to get to the bottom of things, you had to ask the 5 whys. And so with the ability to be able to do that now interactively, and that any employee can do that, it is not just the realm of the data scientists alone. So good. Pete, how about your side of the house when you're looking at your industries that you've been familiar with?
Yeah, you're seeing tremendous growth in it. So as Nigel said, you got the generative side of the house that is developing products, which is opened everyone's eyes. And so you're basically looking at bolt-on products. But now I'm starting to see some really large and neat and innovative products, and not so much leveraging someone else's solution, but I'm seeing some grassroots. So instead of checking code in and going through a generative AI solution to check your code, I am now seeing products start to hit the market that AI is actually the entire development process and pipeline along the way. And it will take care of everything from the requirements all the way through the coding, and now even drop you into the DevOps side of the house. So that's pretty exciting to see. The other side of it, one that I just saw a week or so ago, taking me back to my DoD days, is the leverage of data science is it can scoop tremendous amounts of information, and then it can process it much quicker than the human. So you start looking at the government and the Department of Defense, they're now starting to create data architectures that scoop all the data from across the battlefield and then are visualizing it and projecting it as to the strengths and weaknesses and battle plans and things of that nature. So you're starting to see these, instead of point solutions, you're starting to see really, really deep solutions that are all complete AI. That, as Nigel says and Sabrina has said, has really bringing real change to the industry. The other side of it is our kind of caution is it seems like every product manufacturer wants to get into the AI business. And so you see things that we all grew up with a long time ago that were there that now are great AI solutions. All of a sudden they were this 5 years ago, and today it's an AI solution. You kind of scratch your head and say, well, that's really not. So I'm seeing some really neat things starting to hit the market. The other thing is I would start watching folks for is I think you're going to see a shakeout in the industry. A lot of neat solutions are starting. They're doing great things, but if they can't really be monetized, they will start to dwindle and disappear.
Okay, thanks. So as you know, I'm in the academic side of the house here. So one of the biggest challenges that we have is how do we continue to educate the next generation? And in that context, we find typically still we teach our students the same way Aristotle did. You know, a professor in the head of the room, lecturing to hundreds of students sitting, row by row in a large auditorium or a large classroom. But the whole idea is the best way to learn something, or if somebody can do one-on-one teaching and also learn in terms of in teams. And the difficulty is one-on-one education is very, very expensive. It doesn't scale. Whereas AI is a technology that we can do that. So one of the things we are looking at right now, how can we improve our graduation rate and freshman retention? And I mean, you look at those and you peel the onion back, you'll find the biggest thing and the challenge for incoming freshmen are the math series in the freshman year. So what we're trying to do is to now implement an AI-based tutor that over time we can personalize to the individual students' learning habits and be able to make a difference in terms of being able to make sure the student gets through the initial math series. And so this is something that we are investing in, and our vision is to really spread that thought across the entire undergraduate curriculum. So that's kind of what we're working on our side. Let me go to the next question, which I think I want to start with. Basically, how can we better articulate the benefits and concerns related to AI for company-wide buy-in or awareness for the consumer? So we might produce products like Pete already mentioned, AI already built in, whether you like it or not. You can't just turn it off. So how do we communicate that? So let me start with Pete first, and then go around.
You've got to evangelize. You evangelize, and you don't necessarily have big expectations that you're going to get a taker. on your evangelization, but you're out there kind of saying it's capable, it's doing it. The other thing I recommend is don't get out over your skis. In other words, don't overpromise and underdeliver. And you got to make sure that whatever organization you're with and what you do, you can really go and deliver. But I would often find that I could evangelize. And of course, I run the tech side of the house for companies. And the other thing that I do is I will prototype. And I'll do risk mitigation prototypes and go prototype and show folks this and what the capabilities are. And I'm prototyping in an area to where I've got a business case for the AI to come in. I use it to help grow my associates that work in technology and go try something new. And then once we have it, we can go show the capability and improve it. So like, I'm sure, and I won't put words in Nigel's mouth, but I will guarantee you he has done several prototyping and several demonstrations inside the house at Disney talking about what he can go do. And that is extremely important to it. And then the other thing is, here's the business case. And I'll also say, as you do this over and over and over, and you're going to have, deaf ears for many a year. And don't forget that AI, especially the generative side and the IoT side of it, have been out there for many, many a year. A lot of the stuff that we are doing isn't necessarily new. It's just that it's caught favor by ChatGPT that had $1 billion investment in it. And now people realize what it can go do. And so that being said is that you're evangelizing all the time as to your IoT, generative AI, whatever it might be, solution. And then one of these days, you're going to find that the CEO or a head of a department says, can we go do this? And then you have started to work your way out of it and work your way into a solution. And I'll tell a story, and I say this. This is like, sorry, don't put words in the guy's mouth, but from a galaxy far, far away and a long, long time ago, when I was running the Tomahawk cruise missile program, we always had on the books a capability to redirect the missile while it was flying. And so we said we could go do it. No one gave a crud about it. And we would always kind of say, we have this capability. No one gave a crud about it. And then one day we had an admiral get in a little, the JCS asked me, why can't you go do it? The Air Force can. And lo and behold, the next day, he remembered that capability from the demonstration. And at that time, it was $1 billion. Say that it seemed like a whole lot, but back then it was a whole lot. He gutted a whole $1 billion defense line so that we could go do this capability. So evangelizing and get it to the right audience. And then when there's a need, they'll let you know. Because the other side of it is a lot of the AI work, and some it is, but it's normally starts out as discretionary funding before it gets into a real capital budget and starts going into it. So you don't necessarily have a whole lot of funds either.
Okay, thanks, Pete. So you want to add a few more thoughts, Nigel, from your perspective, please?
Everything Pete said. First of all, Pete, that Tomahawk information, that must have been classified at one point.
It was no longer classified now.
Yeah.
Very kind.
I think everything in fact, Pete, I just had a demo last week and we're going to have one in 2 weeks. So maybe
Sure.
This is really going to I'm going to have a couple things to tie into what Pete says and then something to avoid that we're talking about what to do and what not to do. A lot of this is tie AI to business outcomes, obviously, use demos, practical demonstration. So, and the first one seems obvious, right, for any technology, but people now just want to get into Gen AI. They don't know why. They just think they have to get into it. But you have to tie it to a business outcome or else the POC and the MVP dies on the vine because you build this thing and then they're like, I'm not exactly sure where we're going to put this in our organization. So, something really important, at least on the enterprise, is to enable cross-functional collaboration on this. So if you just have a bunch of AI people making something over here and they're talking to one or two people in the organization, that's not going to work because nobody else knows what's going on. You need to get your non-technical teams involved. Obviously, legal and compliance are always going to be there, but your product managers, people involved at that level. Obviously, be iterative. Don't promise the world. Start with little things. And the reason you're iterative, not for the obvious reason. Obviously, we iterate to build something. But for example, every 3 months, everything's changing. I was just looking at, I sent 2 members of my team to look at Microsoft Azure OpenAI's documentation. They came back and reported something. It was written on October 29, 2024. It's already deprecated. So if you don't iterate, you're probably building upon a solution that's either deprecated or about to be deprecated. So you need to keep iteration involves not just working on improving what you're doing, but looking at what's out there and the technologies, core technologies underneath, the generative AI technologies that you're using, because they're constantly changing on the back end. But that leads to my final point. Avoid long-term platform lock-in. I mean, this is something that you don't want to do in any technology. But if you go for some company in 2025, they may not be around in 2026, or they may be getting stomped on by another 10 other companies, because they're all there, they're all coming, and they're not going to stop. So what you need to do is adopt the agile method with your generative AI platforms, and now your data platforms, and even your third-party vendor platforms that are adopting AI tools. Do not get locked into them. Evaluate them, but when you talk to the solutions and the sales reps, say, I don't think I want to sign a 3-year contract. Let me just sign some sort of valuatory thing, because you're in the greatest competition of technology I think we've ever seen in our lifetime. And we don't want to be with you for 3 years because we have no idea what's going to happen in 3 years. So just some points to add to that.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that very much. So one of the things we struggle with is, again, with any new technology, it has a way that we can use it positively and also negatively, right? So that divide on technology has been with us from a long time ago, with almost any technology that we can think of. We talk about dual use cases all the time. So let me turn to Sabrina, and then maybe she can, especially in the drug business, how can we include AI in such a way that is transparent, is devoid of any bias, and at the same time that it is transparent and everyone can see what the black box is doing for us?
Yep. Thanks for the question. But also to add back to what Peter and Nigel were saying earlier, right? So as we are living in this enterprise world with AI changing every 3 months with a big wave of innovations, we need to be ready for that, right? And it's going beyond bias and transparency. Certainly bias transparency is part of it. But overarchingly, how do we enable this kind of fast-paced innovation with a digital trust layer is really something that fundamentally we need to establish for it to work. And when I say digital trust, it's also not just infrastructure in the agile methodology to enable innovation. It's also the whole legal compliance AI governance framework that we need to connect dot to dot. So from the top, we need to have the strategic direction and the AI consoles established. And this has to be aligned across the different functions at the highest level. So we make sure that when we say corporation policies like this, we already have that cross-functional buy-in first, right? And then on the ground, for each use cases, we will need to make sure that corporation policy doesn't stand just as policy itself. It actually has some tools and the procedure we can enable at the use case level in their workflow and be ready at the hand for the AI developers and project owners to measure what they are doing, right? It's often say you cannot manage what you cannot measure. So this infrastructure and policy and workflow together will help us to start measuring something very concretely for each use cases and then bring that value back with these digital trust layers. Yeah, so that's how we currently do things now. And now we have an AI inventory of over 100 use cases, right? And with this enablement at the enterprise level, legal compliance policy and workflow tools, connecting the dot together, then we can make sure when we are pushing things out, they can be detected with bias and with the guardrails that can help us to understand the toxicity, any topical rails, topical sentiments that need to be further filtered out, and also understand whether there are accuracy issues, AI safety issue, AI quality issues. All these has to be pre-thought through with a very measurable methodology enabled with all this end-to-end info and policy and workflow I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. So after deploying AI in your workflow, have you seen the things that we talked about earlier, faster time to market or more drugs in the pipeline for clinical trials?
I will have to say that we can talk about specific drugs yet, right? But across the pipeline, we have seen a lot of improvement on productivity gain. So just like say that usually it's a one particular writing for submissions and will take certain period of time, right? So we can cut down at least 80% of that after we introduce AI, and that's how powerful it is. Right? If you times that by the number of drugs going through pipeline, number of submissions we need to prepare for ourselves together, that's a huge impact we're bringing to the field.
Okay, thank you, Sabrina. Pete, I know you touched on that a little bit earlier. You want to elaborate more on this use of AI, ethical use of AI?
Yeah, I think it is a challenging field right now. The first question that you posed, I thought was a really good question is, how do you know? And, you just can't create a model and turn it over. There's something that everyone needs to be aware of. It's called model maintenance, because if the underlying data changes, the model could change and so forth and so on. And so now you start getting into some real world solutions about the ethics of, who owns the data, who doesn't own the data, and those type things. But also you start running into the legalities of things. So AI reading a mammogram per se is a great area to be in, but you also have false positives we're aware of, but you also have false negatives. What happens if you give a lady an all clear and it's really not so? And then the ethics just isn't right or wrong, but then also all the legalities that are going to be associated with it. So I think a lot of these areas kind of need to be worked out. And the other side of it is, as a technologist, you got to really be taking a hard look at your model maintenance side. How do you know that it keeps on pumping out the right information? And it's not new. I mean, we've had CRM systems and things like that. How do you, in the association algorithms, how do you know they're doing all the right things? Well, you got continued bugs and defects and maintenance of those systems. And we're going to have to get in the same thing with models. It's not as Nigel said, it's not a build and forget. It's going to be a journey once you get this thing into production.
Okay, very good. And on our side, I was talking about the undergraduate student tutoring program. Our numbers are based on how many students are able to continue on, as opposed to having to drop out from the course and miss an entire year that they have to stay on. They have to stay in school to be able to graduate. So instead of a 4-year program, it immediately becomes 5 years as soon as you slip up on your math series in the freshman year. So we do have some very concrete examples. And if we can show our graduation rate is continuing to improve year over year, that also helps us with recruitment, because at the end of the day, we want these students to be productive and successful and graduate on time with the least amount of debt. These are all measurable numbers for us as we talk about it. Okay, so if in terms of looking at your own experience now, and we talked about making sure we have real business cases, business outcomes that people can understand and relate to, so it's not something that's ethereal. So in your own areas, can you talk about sustainable gains in efficiency and productivity that you're beginning to realize with the use and the help of AI, generative AI particularly? So let me start with Nigel this time.
Well, we all know the one that's making all 40 or 50 years of software development nervous. It's chat-oriented programming. I was reading, I think it went viral, so I'm probably not the only one. There was a video of a 10-year-old programming in Python using a Copilot. So no, but now let's think about this. I remember when programmers came up and, you had a little Atari and you were learning something called BASIC and you were really nerding out. And but those were the nerds, right? Who had that. But now everyone has access to becoming the next generation of what we call a software developer, a software engineer. And, Sabrina was talking about, I have a master's in computer science. What is a master's or a PhD in computer science going to look like in 20 years? These are fundamental changes. And actually, it's kind of very meta. The very things that are used to develop the Gen AI tools, the way we do that is changing. So, I think that's probably the biggest one everybody's thinking about. But of course, we talked about the other stuff before, how we can automate, optimize, and augment almost everything in almost every industry that involves data. And even when the data is prosaic as email, all the way to whether it's a financial report or legal. I know in fact, even in the legal industry, this is actually quite huge. They're doing some really amazing work in generative AI to help their lawyers analyze cases differently. This is law, as I think somebody quoted Aristotle, law goes back to goes back. This is a field that goes back, and now we're changing with generative AI. So I think there's many ways this question could go, but in just a time, I'll leave it at that. But it's really an exciting time to be in for a variety of industries as opposed to just the technical ones.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Nigel. Sabrina, your thoughts? I know you talked a little bit about the pipeline for new drugs and so on. So other thoughts along the same line or something different in your industry that you see is going to reap huge benefits with the use of AI?
Yeah, so I was trying to get to the productivity gain argument earlier, right? So that's really something we have things throughout the pipeline. It's not really just about drug discovery, right? So this is on manufacturing, even on marketing, on post-market surveillance. So anything that you require manual effort before, now you have the machine that detect the pattern from the background and knows that how and can observe all these intricacies of the interaction patterns and to suggest how to do the things automatically and more efficiently with the human in the loop, of course. We are not going to replace humans, right? We say this is a new colleague we introduce. AI is a new colleague. But each of this kind of AI agents being introduced to our workforce, it augments our current workforce by 10 times of the productivity they can go into the workforce, right? And we also are talking about democratizing AI for everyone. And it's also about that, because when we introduce AI into our workforce, everyone become super workers in one way or another. They do not need to know specifically how to language anymore. Everyone can use natural language to put comments with our AI colleague and starts asking inputs and then use it to co-produce a better and more powerful and more efficient plan. And in that regard, we see a lot of productivity gains throughout, and it's not just for drug discovery, it's really across the board.
So you're saying AI is like spinach to Popeye, right?
Yeah, everybody eat that, and then you become Superman. And that's one thing we want to enable our own workforce and become this new digital workforce. And as I said earlier, right, you cannot manage what you cannot measure. So before you put this new colleagues to help everybody become superhumans, you got to have that established already on the ground. How are you going to measure productivity? How are you going to measure AI safety and quality? So you don't just release it with cultural unfit.
So when I look at AI, I kind of, at least simplistically in my mind, I kind of divide it into three domains. One we talked quite a bit about today is about process automation and improvements that you can have with fewer errors. Second way I look at AI is with volumes and volumes of data and so on and so forth. What kind of insight can I garner from this vast volumes of data, because the veracity of the data and the volume of the data is just completely drowning us. So the other use of AI is to quickly gather insight from multiple sources as fast as possible. And the third use of AI, we touched a little bit about, is having the human in the loop in increasing automation with the help of AI and an augmented workforce, which works side by side with you as a human, whether it's in the operating theaters for physicians or flying a jet airplane. There are things in which AI can contribute. So when we look at these three different types of use cases, at least in my mind, the type of things that we talk about regarding compliance and ethics and transparency, they take on a different meaning depending upon which of these three domains we are practicing AI in. Food for thought.
Yes.
So go ahead.
One thing. So I'm going to go into your area, and that is in education. So what I am seeing in that area is just really kind of phenomenal. So it's like a professor needs to create a course.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes to generative AI and he creates a syllabus. And then from the syllabus, he goes to generative AI and says, create the teachings. And so it creates the generative AI will take the entire syllabus and create the entire course for you.
Yep.
The professor will go and whatever his method is, he will educate the class.
Mm-hmm.
The students will take the learnings and go back to their dorm rooms and hit generative AI again to come up with the solution, with the answers.
Mm-hmm.
They will submit their work and papers, and the professor will take their work and papers and submit it to a generative AI solution for grading.
Yep.
So to say that we are going to see improvements in efficiency is really getting to be an understatement. Mm-hmm. We are going to, as Nigel said, and he's spot on, you're going to see tremendous savings. And I'm going to use, one of the best CRM systems in the world is actually at Disney. They have a renown for a great CRM system. And you call there, they have all your history and everything else, huge contact centers. Start with potentially, due to Nigel's work, with chatbots and everything, can diminish and not go away. There'll still be some needs, some odd cases, but greatly reduce the workforce and have better personalization based on broader data than what the humans in a contact center can process. We're going to see some really huge efficiencies in the next 4 to 5 years.
So, Pete, that's an important point. It's not just mimicking and automating what processes where you're used to. It's just completely re-revolutionizing the methodologies, and in our case, particularly how we teach. And I talked about Aristotle teaching the old way 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
What we're doing right now is ultimately is to be able to create a curriculum and then create learning objectives and then tests and evaluation, all basically going through the entire system, which the professor then can tweak. And the important thing is that we used to evaluate students on writing their essays. And the way that we are to talk about it, even if the Gen AI is actually writing the essay, we have to teach students in a case study type of environment, and we analyze the output the AI produced and then really critically critique that to see, are the ideas being well expressed? Did it move your argument? Does it move the reader? What are the things that are missing from a logical perspective? This is a different way of teaching, writing an essay, as opposed to write an essay and I'll grade it in the evening and tell you, what you missed. And it's completely different. So thank you for bringing that up. So we have maybe about a minute left. I'm just going to ask you a lightning round here, just one or two words as to what the promise or the peril of AI. Nigel.
We'll redefine what we think. Well, not one or two words, but redefining how intelligence is defined. Because right now we're speaking a lot about artificial intelligence, but it's making us think, what is human intelligence? Certainly in the workforce.
Okay, perfect. Sabrina, what do you think?
trust and safety. We need to bring that digital trust out for anything we do with AI. And that's the fundamental before we can release them. Just like how we manufacture and produce drug ourselves, people have the procedure, they trust us to put that in the hands of patients. We need that for AI.
Okay, thanks. And Pete?
Yeah, I'm going to say that, the horizon is your imagination on this one.
Mhm.
And it's that, that's going to kind of be what the solution is, what you can create. The other side of it is data science is a lot better than humans can go do in the processing, but it's not perfect.
Mhm.
So you're gonna have to go watch what it is. It will get more perfect over time, but there's still going to be the need for human. And I often say this, that is, while it can do a lot of heavy lifting, it doesn't abdicate the individual from thinking, i.e., you're still going to have to go look at the information and say, is it correct? Why does everything that it produces the paragraph starts with an I, and do
Okay.
those type things? But it will do the heavy lifting for you.
Okay, thank you, Pete. And please join me in thanking all the panelists, Pete, Sabrina, and Nigel, for today's what I would call intellectually stimulating conversation that we had about AI and the future of it. So I want to turn it over now back to Nick.
Great. Yeah. And thank you all for such an insightful panel discussion. And I want to thank everyone else for joining us today. This session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event. As a reminder, please be sure to check out the prizes and raffle rules section to see how you can earn points for the chance to win one of several prizes. Our next session will begin at 12:25 p.m. Eastern Time, which will be a thought leadership titled Unlock the AI Advantage, Navigating AI Implementation. Please click on the join button that will appear on your screen to be redirected to the next session, and we look forward to seeing you there.